Okay, so in this tutorial I am going to show you how to create a simple login page with Flutter. This is building on what we learnt before. So in the last tutorial, if I put this code back in here, last tutorial we built a simple app that has an app bar at the top and a title, and then I asked you to add a button. And then when you press the button, it shows a notification or a message alert. But in this one, I'm going to show you how to create, and that was a stateless widget. And in this one, we're going to create a stateful widget. And a stateful widget is where the user will need to interact with the page. They're going to change things about it. They want, for example, they want to enter in their details, username and password, and then maybe the state of that page needs to be updated based on what that person has done. So you can find the link to this lesson here. You can follow along. Obviously we're using Chat GPT, and the first thing you need to prompt Chat GPT is to ask it like, what is the difference between a stateless and a stateful widget, and read that answer. I think you've got to say in terms of Flutter as well, so if I change that in terms of Flutter, and basically the answer it will give is, in a long or short, is what I said, that a stateless widget is one that's a simple page, whereas a stateful widget is one which will change. So something about the user's interaction with that page will make the web change. It will update its state and change what it looks like. So that's an important thing to remember, just in case you come across that in the code, and then you can recognize it and understand it a little bit. But what we're going to do now is, and this is how you define stateless widgets. So your class will extend stateless widget. This is a very, very simple example, just a one-page thing. Then we have this widget here. Remember, the widget is how you construct the view, how it looks, and you can insert lots of things like text boxes and images, whatever you want, and then you can define the layout. It's a little bit like an HTML markup language, but it's not the same. Hopefully you've experimented a bit with different types of widgets and layouts. So and the best way to do that is to ask ChatGPT to write them for you, and then you can look at those answers. So, but this code here, so after the explanation of stateful and stateless widget, which I got from that, the next prompt you want to give to ChatGPT is you want to create a stateful widget. It's got two text boxes for username and password, and a button that says login, and also one for register, right? And we want to create a login function that's connected to that event function. So whenever we press it, we can call this function, just like you're probably used to doing in other languages. And what you'll realize here is that every single computer language system in the world has similar constructs. You know, you have events, things that the user does, and then you have code that picks up on that event and does something with it. For example, checking the details of the user's login and password. So if I put that into there, it should generate me something similar to this, or you can copy this code in here, and then we're just going to break it down and talk through it. So I go over to my project in Flutter Lab, I paste in I press save. This is going to change now. So it's a nice layout, this. Let's look at the widget layout first of all. So we've got a scaffolding, and then we've got the app bar at the top, which is that. Then we've got the body, and why is the body a padding layout? Well, because we think we want to pad all the things 16 pixels from the edge. So let's play around with that. Let's make that a 0 and see what happens. You can see that now all the components of the widget go up to the edge, so it doesn't look as neat. So we'll put that 16 back in. And then we've got the column layout. So a child of this body is a column layout. If you remember when we discussed column layouts before, if I zoom all the way to the end, if it's laid out with a column, you have a main axis, top to bottom, and a cross axis, left to right. So the main axis is saying lay it out in the center. So it moves all the components and puts them in the middle like that. And then the cross axis alignment is stretching them as far as they can go, but keeping that padding there. So it's quite simple when you look through it line by line and break it down. And then we've got something here, we've got children. So we've got many children, so it's an array of children. And in there, we've got a text field for username. It's got an outline border, so a nice border so you can see. It makes it look very neat. You can define the type of keyboard. FlutLab is really good, and if you hover over some of these key frames, key terms, it will give you the description. So then we've got a size box, so that's actually just a gap. So we're sort of doing username field gap, password field, which is here, similar kind of thing. We're obscuring the text because it's a password field. So if I write in there, you're not going to be able to see the password. That's important. So someone else can't see your password. Then we've got a bigger gap, and then we've got this elevated button, this blue elevated button. Why have we got this blue theme? Well, if we scroll all the way to somewhere near the top, so we've got somewhere we're setting the color to be the theme to be blue. I think that might be the default color. But anyway, the blueness elevates that button. It makes it stand out, right? And then underneath that, we've got a register button, which isn't going to do anything yet. At the moment, the login button is the only thing that's going to do anything. And when it's pressed, it's going to call a function called login, right? And that function called login is defined before the widget. The order doesn't really matter. And it's in a class called login page state. So remember that this is the stateful widget. Again, we've got the imports and we've got the running the main app. Then we've got your app that extends stateless widget, and then we're defining here a stateless sort of material app instead of, it could be an iOS looking app. Then that calls login page, and then login page extends stateful widget, and then we're creating a state. So things that the user does on this page could update this page. You don't need to worry too much about it. You can definitely go and query Chat GPT about those things, but if you understand a little bit of object-oriented programming, you'll kind of be able to understand the similarities. So, for example, extending is a type of inheritance. We're inheriting everything from the parent class. So we're extending this login page, which extends stateful widget. And then here we've got two properties of our class. So these are global variables. They're the username controller and the password controller. They're text editing controller fields. What's a text editing controller field? I can hover over it and I can get a description from FlutLab, but essentially it's a text field. And then we've got this login function. So this is what gets called when we press login. Now it goes and gets the username and controller text from the field, puts it in these two local variables for username and password, and then it does a check to see are they equal to admin and password 123. Now you can make your username and password be whatever you want, the correct one, but unless these ones are entered, nothing will happen. It will just print to the console invalid username and password. But if they are correct, then we're going to get this snack bar message at the top. So let's give that a go. Actually, let's make a slight change to this, or maybe you can figure this out. But if you don't log in correctly, can you make this snack bar message appear when that happens? So it's just a case of copying this code basically and changing the message. But then you get an idea of, like, you know, you can start coding and you'll feel like you own it a bit more. So if we put admin, in the username field, admin and then password 123, and then we press login. You saw that there's a little message at the bottom, a snack bar message at the bottom saying login successful. So that is confirming that this code works. But if I don't get it right, nothing appears on the screen other than this print message. So if we look here, it says invalid username and password. So that's printing it to the console. But if we wanted to make that snack message appear when it's not correct, then I just need to copy the code there, really. And then I'm going to change this snack bar text to be invalid username and password instead of saying login successful. And you can change the length that that message is shown by changing the duration. And I push that. And if I save that, it will do a hot reload, which means instead of restarting the app, it will just password 123. There we go, login successful. But if I put the wrong username and password, it says invalid username and password. And then after that, we have a dispose function. So because this is a stateful widget, and when you deal with mobile apps, there needs to be a sort of life cycle of things that are called. So when a screen disappears off the edge of the screen, you need to call dispose to dispose of these text things that are no longer needed to be kept in memory. Because if we don't do that, it's going to keep storing stuff in memory, and the mobile will run out of memory. So dispose is a useful function. Maybe go and chat GPT that and find out what other functions are important in this life cycle of a mobile app in Flutter. But you'll find the same kind of thing in every sort of mobile platform. There'll be or any platform that has UI in it. You'll find a certain life cycle message to like load, initialize the state of the screen, and then dispose of the screen, right? And they're called at certain points when the screen appears and disappears. Yeah, and then we get back to the widget. So go and get this working. Read through this article and make sure you, wherever you see Ask ChatGPT, ask it those questions so you can get a better understanding of how the code works. So the kind of questions I've got here are, how does the snack bar work? Again, ask it about layout of components. What about the onPress function? What does the word final mean in the class variable, or the property of this class? What does that mean? What does final mean? It is to do again with inheritance and object-oriented programming. And then this login function as well. And then, as I said, I've just broken down the code, and then other task ChatGPT prompts at the end. When the login and register is pressed, how can you move to the next screen? So that's something we're going to look at in the next tutorial. How do we create a register screen, and how do we go to the next screen after we've logged in? So maybe you can do that already. Perhaps you could get ChatGPT to generate that for you. But if you want to look at the next article, it's here, and I'll create another video for that. So yeah, happy coding, and I hope you're getting used to how Flutter is structured a little bit, and some of the things that maybe seem confusing at first are becoming a little bit clearer. Even though you may not necessarily feel very confident in just free writing the code, you at least be able to look at it and understand it, and that's the main thing that we're trying to get out of these lessons, because eventually then you understand the platform and you'll know how to fix code if it goes wrong. See you in the next lesson.